Donald Trump announced today that U.S. forces had launched a strike on a second Venezuelan vessel, killing 3 people he described as terrorists transporting narcotics bound for the United States. The action marks an escalation in his administration's campaign against drug cartels and broadens the use of lethal military force in pursuing them, and comes as the U.S. continues a massive buildup of forces around Venezuela.
Well, we have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place. And plus we have recorded evidence that they were leaving. We've recorded them. It's very careful because we know you people would be after us. We're very careful. But we have noticed that there are no ships in the ocean anymore. We're seeing that there's like no ships, when the first one we went, there were hundreds of boats. Now there are no boats. I wonder why.
We live in a moment that feels increasingly like the prelude to catastrophe. The currents of our time point towards dangers that are not abstract or distant, but pressing, cumulative, and accelerating. The spectre of world war looms once more, previously thought unthinkable, this time under conditions more unstable and technologically volatile than at any point in human history. Trump, a president who openly admits he does not read daily security briefings, has allowed personal grievances to shape international policy, undermining America's standing on the world stage. In doing so, he has handed leverage to adversaries while fracturing long-standing relationships with allies. The rise of the far right across continents, the erosion of democratic norms, and the reckless incorporation of artificial intelligence into political, military, and cultural life creates a volatile mixture. To ignore these threats is to risk stumbling blindly into disaster. History is full of warnings. In the decades before the First World War, societies across Europe convinced themselves that interdependence, cultural, economic, and diplomatic, made war unthinkable. They underestimated how brittle peace could be when national rivalries and ideological passions collided. The firestorm that followed was mechanized slaughter on a scale no one had imagined. A generation later, underestimating the ambitions of fascist movements produced devastation far greater still. Today, the lesson is that complacency is lethal. When new technologies intersect with authoritarian politics and unqualified leaders, the potential for global calamity multiplies. Previously, the very slowness of human judgment was a stabilizing factor. By contrast, machine-speed decision-making collapses the margin for reflection. When algorithms trained on imperfect or adversarial data are placed in the chain of command, the risk of accidental Armageddon becomes real. The unthinkable is no longer unimaginable. Meanwhile, authoritarian and far-right movements are gathering strength across former democracies. Their common threads are hostility to pluralism, disdain for scientific authority, and a politics of resentment. They exploit fear, economic dislocation, and cultural anxiety. Their methods are amplified by AI-driven technologies of manipulation, deepfakes that manufacture false events, bots that flood networks with outrage, algorithms that deliver each citizen a tailored stream of suspicion. The result is a corrosive mistrust in institutions, a steady erosion of the very democratic norms that once constrained extremism. This is not only a cultural struggle, but a geopolitical one. Authoritarian powers have every incentive to destabilize democracies from within. By seeding doubt and division, they weaken their rivals without firing a shot. Artificial intelligence multiplies their reach, enabling disinformation at scale, tailored to the vulnerabilities of specific populations. In the hands of far-right parties, such tactics not only undermine elections but reshape the very terrain of public discourse, making consensus nearly impossible. The danger is not hypothetical. We see echoes of the 1930s, populist strongmen denouncing the press as enemies, scapegoating minorities, romanticizing violence. Add to this mix the technology of the 21st century, instant global communication, algorithmic amplification, autonomous weapons, and the peril is obvious. The false comfort of resilience should not blind us. It is true that after past catastrophes, societies rebuilt. Europe emerged from 2 world wars, devastated cities rose again, international institutions were founded. Yet history also records collapses from which recovery never came. Empires swallowed, civilizations extinguished, languages lost. The difference today is that our weapons give us the capacity not merely to wound, but to erase. Nuclear arsenals can incinerate millions in an afternoon. Climate disruption exacerbated by political paralysis already destabilizes regions. To place AI into the gears of such machinery is to gamble with humanity's survival. This is not technological determinism. Artificial intelligence does not force outcomes by itself. It is a mirror of human choices, a projection of our priorities, our laziness, and our ambitions. The question is whether we will allow it to become a substitute for judgment in matters where judgment cannot be abdicated. A society that entrusts war and truth itself to machines courts disaster. The far right's rise makes that task harder, especially in light of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which is already being weaponized to clamp down on critique of his legacy. These movements are not interested in careful governance or restraint. They thrive on chaos, on dismantling guardrails, on denying inconvenient truths. Their hostility to science makes them unlikely to demand rigorous safeguards for AI. Their enthusiasm for strength and dominance makes them eager to deploy it recklessly. In their hands, AI becomes a weapon not just of war but of culture, a means of drowning dissenting voices, of rewriting history, of fabricating realities more convenient to their ideology. We stand on a knife's edge. If AI is allowed to govern our most consequential choices, if the far right succeeds in dismantling democratic constraints, if geopolitical rivalries escalate unchecked, the world could plunge into conflict beyond anything in our history. The task of our time is to resist that drift, to insist on human responsibility, to protect the institutions of democracy, and to keep the machinery of annihilation firmly under human control. To fail is to risk that our age becomes remembered, if remembered at all, as the one that created its own oblivion. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.